First of all, I would just like to say welcome to all of you, and thank you all for being here tonight. We are celebrating Leaders of Democracy and the League of Women Voters of Colorado. My name is Ann Trujillo. I'm with Denver 7. I am honored to be your MC for this evening. So we do have a lot to celebrate tonight. Tonight we'll be exploring and applauding the connection, collaboration, and community that makes Colorado the safest place in which to cast a vote. And we're here to celebrate the League of Women Voters and the effectiveness of this organization. So we are looking forward tonight to hearing from the League's 2023 Leader of Democracy, Congressman Jason Crow, who's with us tonight, chosen because of his understanding of the importance of community. And the League believes he epitomizes the term Leader of Democracy for his heroism. I must be out of practice, I can't talk. I do talk for a living, by the way. The term Leader of Democracy for his heroism and bravery on January 6th, 2021. First tonight, though, we're going to talk about the League of Women Voters, established 103 years ago by some of the very suffragists who fought for the 19th Amendment. And this should make us all feel very proud. Women from across the country connected on the issue of suffrage and equal rights, and they rose up together and fought and marched until the 19th Amendment was passed. And then a group of these misbehaviors created the League of Women Voters to ensure that this new voting bloc of 26 million citizens would be informed and confident at the polling place. Well, would you believe it? The job is not done. Providing partisan, nonpartisan factual information that voters need remains a large part of the League's mission and actions. And about 15% of our state's voters access this valuable information each election. And like those original suffragists, the League has always advocated for accessible and fair elections and for equal rights for all. Think about this for a moment. League members fought for the Cable Act in 1922, allowing U.S. women to maintain their citizenship upon marriage to a non-citizen. The League rallied for global peace in the 1940s and was one of the first organizations to be recognized by the United Nations as an NGO after consulting at the Charter Convention. In the 60s and 70s, the League was a vocal advocate for the Voting Rights Act and the Equal Rights Amendment. And of course, these fights continue. The League won't back down from the fights to bring the Voting Rights Act back to its full strength and to finally pass the ERA. In the 90s, the National Voter Registration Act was another feather in the League's cap, and in the 2000s, it was the Help America Vote Act. Here in Colorado, the League's legacy is inspiring. During the 2023 legislative session, the League stood strong for reproductive justice and gun violence prevention, and progress was made. I see you cheering out there. In 2018, the League collaborated with diverse partners to draft and pass Amendments Y&Z, creating commissions to redistrict and therefore limiting partisan gerrymandering. Back in the 80s, it was Motor Voter, establishing voter registration at DMV sites to allow more Coloradans to easily register to vote. In the 60s, the State League helped to draft and pass merit selection of judges, removing partisanship from judicial selection. And yet, so many challenges remain, and the political divide is deeper than ever, proving that the League of Women Voters is needed now more than ever. Members of the League vow to continue to advocate for the return of civil discourse to our political arena, while fighting to ensure every voice is heard and respected. And that, my friends, is a value that should be shared by all of us, no matter political affiliation. So we have come a long way, yet we still have far to go. So we are grateful that you are here, because your support is what drives the League's work. Your time and talents make up the grassroots foundation of the League of Women Voters, and the work cannot be done without all of you. So thank you again for being here. I have been in the news business for nearly 40 years now, and like so many of you, I walked into a newsroom thinking that I could affect change. And when I first walked in, newsrooms were smoke-filled, typewriters pounding away. It was a noisy, crazy place. Female reporters were only assigned medical and education stories. TV stations barely covered our communities of color. And then women in anchor chairs, men did not want to give those up. Now that I am nearing the end of my career in news, I can safely say our newsrooms have made some progress, some, and yes, we still have some work to do. We could do better. So I, like all of you, and the League itself, I stand on the shoulders of the women who came before me. So we are here to celebrate tonight. And with that, kicking off the evening is Poet Laureate of Aurora, Asia Fox. Please give her a warm welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's such an honor. As you heard, I am the Poet Laureate of Aurora, and my term started last summer and will go on until April of 2026. I am very honored to have this role because it allows me plenty of space to do awesome programming and things in my community of Aurora, but also in Colorado as a whole. Some of my goals, which I wanted to share with you today, are that I'm really trying to do outreach of not just teaching poetry, but also trying to show people that they can use their voice and that your experiences and stories are important to share. Just like this museum, all of us have something to share. And so I believe that it's really important to share the different ways that we can be creative and do that and express ourselves. I also truly believe that poetry is not just about expression, it's an atmosphere where you get to redefine, re-articulate, and also figure out what things mean, especially if they feel impossible. So the poem I brought today to share with you is called Existence, Always an Act of Interconnecting. And that's how I really view existence in itself. We can't exist without connecting to other things and other people and other information. And so I actually wrote this poem about a year ago for the Aurora History Museum. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Festival of Wreaths, but it's really beautiful, and it's a beautiful effort by the community where they each donate a wreath that they've decorated that is then auctioned off. And so I thought about what a wreath symbolizes and means, and it's not just about memorial, but it's about being connected. So I'm gonna go ahead and read that poem for you. Existence, always an act of interconnecting. A poet's wreath is not a wreath without metaphor. The ribbon quirked into an odd but perfect angle. What an angel artistry is and can be when we give cheer to it, break bread and toast to it, a loving welcome, a goodbye fear. All wreaths are made up of 80% earth, the body, Ouroboros, olive, serpentine, inviting us, a breath of sugar dust to feast on our own harvest. I offer to you my conch shell, my blue seed, and a marbled ink woven into an entrance, into a halo. Two hands giving and taking circumnavigate a cold winter together. In that same time, they evolve a galaxy into a wheel, a whirl, a ring. We are all capable of such glimmerance, a remembrance of the objects that once patched us whole through the year. A poet's poem can be found in an unmarked museum of oddities and syllables, each of us living there, a donated treasure towards the grandness of our community's perplexing wreath. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Asia. I should tell you that she was selected out of 6 candidates by a panel that included 2 former city poets, and it was an extensive application process, so we're delighted to hear your words tonight. She just is always participating in various community events, so thank you for making time to be here tonight. Now I want to introduce to you Darryl Vigil. He's the co-facilitator of Water and Tribes in the Colorado River Basin. He's Jicarilla Apache, Jemez Pueblo, and Zia Pueblo. He's also chair of Water is Life, a tribal partnership, official spokesperson and past chair for the Colorado River 10 Tribes Partnership, and member of the coordination committee of the next steps of the Colorado River Basin Supply Demand Study, among many, many others. He gets very passionate talking about water, I have learned. The League of Women Voters of Colorado had the honor of hearing Daryl speak during February's Water Equity for the Tribes in the Colorado River Basin presentation and wanted to invite him back for all of those who missed his unique and passionate perspective. So please give a warm welcome to Daryl Vihey.
Good evening, everybody. Very honored that the League of Women Voters of Colorado invited me back. As mentioned, I got to share a little bit of my reflections about the work that I do in the Colorado River Basin at a webinar that they put on, and I got to share a little bit of the work that I do alongside of some of my tribal leadership peers at that webinar to talk a little bit about, what's going on in the Colorado River Basin and how tribes are involved in all that kind of conversation in regards to policy. But before I start, I just want to acknowledge, my tribe, the Hickory Apache Nation, and their traditional homeland extends, from a little bit south of here, Colorado Springs, all the way south to the Panhandle and over to kind of where we're at, my reservation is at right now, which is the Chama Valley of New Mexico. So we had an extensive area of land that was, and we were hunter-gatherers. And we, for us, we were hunter-gatherers since the beginning of time. And so, this is very germane to the conversation about water. But as you can imagine, being a hunter-gatherers for, as a way of life and then being put on a stationary piece of land immediately takes away, all the identity and who you've been for centuries or thousands of years. And so my tribe settled on its reservation and on a piece of land that wasn't their traditional homeland in 1887. And we didn't settle our water rights till 1992. And so a lot of the current activity in the Colorado River Basin around tribal water rights is really new to tribal and tribes and tribal governments because we haven't been involved in the conversation. But it's become really important because tribes have ownership of 25% of the volume of the Colorado River. And in 2023, there's no structural place for tribes to engage in the water policy conversation at all. And so the last 12 years of my work absolutely has been about, being able to be a voice and very honored and privileged that water has given me a voice and an ability to be of service, to the tribal sovereigns in the Colorado River Basin, including my own tribe. And so I got to speak just briefly at the webinar that was mentioned, and oops, sorry, and it was about water equity, and that's one of the things that is, if you a lot of you are probably aware, if you've watched the news and those kind of things, is that hydrology in the Colorado River Basin absolutely has driven us to the conversations of basic human justice, equity, and inclusion. And the fact that we have an ability in the basin, through the relationships that are being built at the tribal level, at the state level, and the federal level, to hopefully create a new paradigm of policy making in terms of, the inclusion of current values, because right now we're operating on a set of values that are about 100 years old. And so when I got the invitation the second time around, to come and share just a little bit with you all, understanding the time constraints, absolutely, said yes, because I saw, how parallel, the vision and mission statement for the League of Women Voters is in general to kind of the movement that's going on, and as I like to call it, the coalition of the willing or cover basin right now. And in terms of, really thinking about what are those values that we're going to align on and build consensus around that will hopefully forward some policy making that's inclusive and that makes some sense. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share a little bit of this with you, because it's really important to understand, the tribal sovereigns that, are within this state and then the neighboring states absolutely, rely on the political process, and they absolutely rely on the ability of folks and their knowledge about, the current realities about the hydrology and the lack of inclusion. And just one last thing that I wanted to say, because it's so true, and we're trying to get past it right now, that woven into the very fabric of this nation is this systematic process of genocide that's woven into the fabric of all our government structures. Those processes of extermination, assimilation, and termination. And so what we're hoping is that, that by sharing, where the tribes are at right now, that there'll be an ability for us to have, to be able to reconcile our past, so that hopefully we can start to create a future for ourselves, which means just basic building of economies and infrastructure that most of the rest of the country enjoys, that we're just starting to enjoy now. And so I absolutely appreciate the opportunity and the invite this evening, just to share a little bit of that with you all. And if you have an opportunity, please go to our website. It's waterandtribes.org. And we've done a host of policy briefs, and we include news items and those kind of things to inform the broader basin about what's going on with tribes and tribes in the Colorado River Basin, because we really think that the world is watching the Colorado River Basin, the 5th largest economy in the world, 41 million people in the basin, and I think we have an opportunity to really do something different and transform the way we do policy making. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Daryl. Before we go any further, I want to explain something here. We've already talked a fair amount about the League of Women Voters of Colorado. Did you know that there are 19 local leagues that make up the Colorado League? So, in communities across our state right now, groups gather under the league banner to study, discuss, learn, and advocate for issues that are important to their region. It is these 3,000 members, or 6,000 boots on the ground, who make up the Colorado League and its board of directors. So I want to take a moment and let's all give a big shout out, if you can, to our amazing members across the state who put in so much time and effort to strengthen our state. Now, some are here in our room right now. More are watching by live stream. So in fact, we do have a few watch parties happening. So everyone, let's wave to Estes Park. Hey, Estes Park. Hey, Gunnison. And our newest league in Park County is celebrating its first birthday. So thank you, Park County. I know, that's very exciting. All right, we want to welcome now a past leader of democracy recipient, and that is Lauren Castile. Lauren's the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation of Colorado, and the first person in Colorado to lead 3 foundations. She has nearly 30 years of philanthropic leadership, as well as a lifelong dedication to inclusiveness. Lauren was one of the League's 2021 Leaders of Democracy, and we are pleased that she is here with us tonight. So please give a warm welcome to Lauren Castile.
Once again, hello to all of the leagues that are out there watching us today. And I'd also like to take a few moments just again to give applause to Aja and also to Daryl for their work and for their creativity and inspiration. And certainly to my dear friend Beth, thank you for the opportunity to join you today in connection, collaboration, and community. The prefix co means joint or jointly. What it really means is that none of us can do it alone. Our ideas, actions, and investments are stronger together. It's true for the Women's Foundation of Colorado, the only community foundation in the state advancing gender, racial, and economic equity. It's certainly true. Woo! I like that. It's certainly true for the League of Women Voters, whose mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. The Women's Foundation of Colorado was founded in 1987 by a small group of visionary women to fight the feminization of poverty, a fight that continues today. We've made important progress, but even in 2023, only 1.9% of all philanthropic giving in the U.S. is intended to benefit women and girls, and only 0.5% for women and girls of color. Everything the Women's Foundation of Colorado does benefits the 2.85 million women and girls in the state. This includes our grant making, which reached more than $2.6 million last year statewide, touching all 64 counties in Colorado, research, narrative change, impact investing, and public policy. Our nonpartisan leadership in public policy advocacy has grown tremendously, with our support of more than 20 bills this legislative session. For us, it's about people, not politics. For the first time, we led a statewide coalition to ensure equal pay for equal work. And there's good news there. Governor Polis will sign that bill into law on Monday. This fall, we will issue our next version of our voter ballot guide called the WO Manifesto, and we'll hold webinars for people to learn more about the ballot measures we'll be advocating for and the tools that they can use to strengthen their own voices. We've always looked to the League of Women Voters of Colorado as a longstanding, highly respected, nonpartisan source of credible information, AKA facts, for people as they prepare to vote. We are pleased of their partnership. The League of Women Voters has been a North Star for so many organizations as we do our part to preserve and protect democracy. Multiracial democracy is the heart that beats for our collective freedom. Maintaining the health of that heart is critical so that it continues to beat strong, because when it doesn't, our country falls ill. The symptoms look like the retrenchment of voting rights and the negation of freedom to make decisions about our own bodies or our futures. I'm talking about access to abortion, the pending ruling on affirmative action, and the constant judicial threat to LGBTQIA+ rights. Again, it's about people, not politics. I take these things very personally. My father, Whitney Young, stood beside President Johnson when the Voting Rights Act was signed in 1965, which outlawed the discriminatory voting practices that muted the voices of Black Americans. He said on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial during the March on Washington that the drums of discontent are beating around the country and can be heard around the globe. I would say that we need to continue to listen to those drums today. We should all take it personally. The insurrection of January 6th, 2021, was the most shocking act of domestic terrorism in our lifetime. To see our nation's capital under siege and our democratic process scorned is something we must never forget. But more importantly, we must never be complacent nor think that there is nothing that we can do. In fact, when we do not exercise our rights, we become complicit. Here's what we can each do. Support organizations that strengthen democracy, like the League of Women Voters of Colorado. Learn to advocate for the bills and measures that are important to you. Share accurate, nonpartisan information about voting and legislative processes, both national and local. And always cast an informed vote, even in local and county elections. Voter suppression can be insidious. Shorter voting times, stricter voter ID laws, restricted registration, and even access to drinking water. Daryl, forgive me, drinking water, how could I forget? Or a chair. And last, be open to unlikely alliances on behalf of democracy. I love you out there. You're just democracy can only be protected through the work of many people of diverse backgrounds and identities. But we must not overlook the extraordinary actions of the few. Thank you, Congressman Jason Crow. For your decades of service, commitment, and bravery to protecting our democracy in so many aspects of your life, not just on January 6th. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Colorado for your work to protect and expand voter access, which helps us to create the safe communities that we hope to be proud to live in and work. And thank you to all of you. I am proud to stand in connection with you to form a community that collaborates to sustain the healthy heartbeat of democracy that will advance opportunities for women and all Coloradans. Blood to the heart should only flow through our community veins and never be spilled on the steps of our seat of government or in the streets or in our schools. We must remain connected as a collaborative community on behalf of democracy. Thank you.
Well said, Lauren. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next segment focuses on youth as future leaders. For many years, the League has offered a special prize for documentaries on barrier-breaking women for the middle and high schoolers who compete on National History Day, Colorado, a social studies and literacy program that teaches research and critical thinking skills. Well, tonight, we are celebrating both the 2022 and 2023 winners, and I am excited to introduce these talented teens and their work. So first, our 2022 winner, Kira Krishnaya and Emma Taylor, and their documentary, A Diplomat for a New Generation, Madeleine Albright.
And all of a sudden I thought, well, wait a minute. I am sitting behind a sign that says the United States. And if I don't speak today, then the voice of the United States will not be heard.
Madeleine Albright, a U.S. ambassador to the UN and the first female U.S. Secretary of State, used her diplomatic skills and strategies in these positions to debate with world leaders to end conflicts, as exemplified in her push for airstrikes, leading to the NATO bombing campaign of Kosovo in 1999. In the short term, Albright debated with domestic peace activists and leaders from foreign countries to end the Kosovo crisis. In the long term, she inspired and paved the way for future female secretaries of state. She was sharp-tongued and persistent during the many debates she participated in, which broke many people's false perceptions of women being passive. Madeleine Albright inspired others through her dedication to diplomacy and political activism. Her unique skill set and notable diplomatic career encouraged all women to break the glass ceiling.
Hi, my name is Kira, and I currently attend Westridge School.
And I'm Emma, and I'm a student at Fairview High School.
Our 2022 National History Day project was called A Diplomat for a New Generation, Madeleine Albright, and our project was guided by one of our most supportive teachers, Anna Royal.
While we were brainstorming possible topics, we had a lot of different ideas, but we knew that we wanted to highlight a woman because we hoped to elevate the voices of women and tell a really powerful story with our project. So we chose Madeleine Albright because she inspired so many women to undertake positions of power in the United States government.
Yeah, also we thought that Madeleine Albright's dedication to diplomacy and justice was remarkable and was a great example of how important women are in our government and how much female voices, though underrepresented, matter. And also, Albright really made use of her position as Secretary of State to advocate for equality and justice, which really inspired us.
Through this project, we really explored Madeleine Albright's legacy and impact, especially her work with the Kosovo crisis. All of the detail and research needed made this process very challenging, but ultimately rewarding in the end. Our documentary also demanded a lot of time and dedication from us, so at the start we made a clear plan of what needed to be done, and then we constantly worked together to research and edit our documentary. We had a lot of outlines that filled up our Google Drives.
Yeah, I feel like part of the reason we were so successful is that we understood that this project had deadlines and we were really committed to sharing our ideas and getting the work done. It was a really equal distribution of work, and we each recorded half of our documentary, and I'm so incredibly proud of how successful our project was.
And also, we worked really well as partners, so we were able to develop so many of our skills like writing, documentary making, and research. We went through a deep research process together where we uncovered so many intriguing primary sources, and we learned a lot about Madeleine Albright that we hadn't known before.
Yeah, we were really surprised by how complicated the diplomatic process was and how much more there was to the story. Before our project, I knew what diplomacy meant, but I didn't really understand how broad of a term it was, and how complicated the process was. Especially for our project, Madeleine Albright tirelessly attempted to promote the values of equality and justice and to stop the killing of ethnic Albanians. But the peace talks weren't effective, so she had to come up with another solution. And it was just really interesting for us to explore diplomacy and see how it isn't just this straightforward, easy to understand tactic, but there's so much more to the story.
Albright used her position as Secretary of State to defend what the United States stands for, which is equality. She protected people who were being silenced, even if they were in another country like Kosovo. She took risks and used a new tactic of diplomacy to defend these people. So her legacy and the mission of the League of Women Voters have a lot in common. Both defend democracy through advocacy, as stated in the mission statement. Albright did this by using her position in government, while the League of Women Voters does this through their fight for democracy by empowering voters.
Yeah, we were really inspired when we read the League of Women Voters mission statement and their vision, because it had so many strong ties to our project, and to Madeleine Albright's work, especially with the Kosovo crisis. Also in Albright's legacy and the mission of the League of Women Voters, everyone is represented, especially women. And through our research, we found that Albright paved the way for women and fought to destroy the idea that women couldn't succeed in high positions in government, and she proved so many people wrong. And the League of Women Voters does the same thing in the more modern society we live in today by ensuring that women feel empowered to vote and by valuing everyone's voices, no matter their gender.
Personally, what resonated with me the most in the vision statement of the League of Women Voters was that every person has the confidence to participate in democracy, because it demonstrates that democracy is not an individual thing, and it really relies on people supporting others and encouraging everyone to share their voice.
Yeah, exactly. The League of Women Voters works to defend democracy, and I believe that this mission is really important because it is essential for everyone to recognize that there are different opinions in a democracy, but that's kind of why we have a democracy, to hear from everyone and to accept other people for their views and what they have to contribute to our country.
Albright fought for these ideals not only in Kosovo, but also in our own democracy. She remains such an inspiration to us, and though she passed away while we were in the process of making our documentary, her fight for equality and impact on the lives of so many women still lives on.
Yes, we are incredibly thankful for this opportunity that the League of Women Voters has presented us with, and we hope that you too are inspired to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aren't they great? Very impressive. Thank you to both of them. All right, we want to meet this year's special award winner, Elsa Conklin, who will teach us about Maya Lin, artist, architect, influencer, and creator.
Maya Lin, artist, architect, influencer, and creator. I like to think of my work as creating a private conversation with each person, no matter how public each work is, and no matter how many people are present. Maya Lin. In the early 1980s, the US was still suffering from the effects of the Vietnam War. Subsequently, a young architect named Maya Lin effectively commemorated these losses with an otherworldly design for her memorial. She has only grown in her recognition and national appreciation since developing a new frontier in the art of remembering the fallen. Maya Lin's Asian ethnicity aroused controversy, however, and critics stated that someone with Asian heritage shouldn't be creating a memorial for those who perished in a war in Asia. They thought of the memorial as a black knife cutting into the land, a scar. As one critic stated, for too long the veterans of that miserable conflict have borne the burden of the national ambivalence about the war. But Maya thought of it as a look into another world, as a memory of what once was, a promise. To fly you have to have resistance, Maya Lin later said, and indeed, resistance she had.
Always persevere, never ever give up. We are still in a world where you see a lot of, I'll say it, it's like suppression because of our race and our gender. So don't become complacent, I think, especially now.
In 1982, a year and a half after the contest was announced, the memorial was finished at last. It attracts over 5 million people a year, and in each person invokes a sense of acceptance and humility. The people that visit the memorial feel a bond with those who are lost, and many of them get emotional in front of the huge black walls. I try to give people a different way of looking at their surroundings. That's art to me, states Maya Lin on her many projects concerning environmental issues. In designing her own memorial, Maya built recognition for Asian Americans and women in previously unexplored territories and jobs, helped more people understand the impact of global warming and other environmental issues, and rethought traditional memorials. Maya Lin has truly crossed a frontier, not only through her works, but also through their emotional appeal. Indeed, her iconic innovations have touched the hearts of millions, and will continue to do so for years to come.
Hello, my name is Elsa Conklin. I go to St. Columba Catholic School in Durango, Colorado. For National History Day, I did a project on Maya Lin, titled Maya Lin, Artist, Architect, Influencer, and Creator. I think that the teacher that guided my project the most was Mrs. Nakamoto,
my social studies teacher. She was in charge of History Day among my class. I chose Maya Lin for my project because I've always been inspired by women who are outside of society's mold for them, and Maya Lin definitely did that. To make my documentary, I first chose a topic, Maya Lin, and researched her a lot. Then I wrote up my process paper along with the script for my documentary. After that, I looked for pictures to use in my documentary. I used around 40 pictures in all, and I had to cite and annotate every individual source in my annotated bibliography. I then used video editing software and audio recording equipment to create and narrate my documentary. I added in background music and arranged the images and video to complement my script. I also updated my documentary after the school and regional competitions to fine-tune the presentation and music and to incorporate helpful suggestions from judges and filmmakers. Something surprising that I learned about Maya Lin as I researched her was that she was the first woman ever to design a memorial on the National Mall. Maya Lin also refers to herself as a designer, not an architect. She is also largely involved in fighting for environmental causes and campaigns and integrates this into her work. I can definitely see my research interweaving with the mission of the League of Women Voters, because Maya Lin empowered women around the world and inspired them to do what they wanted while making the world a better place. It truly inspires me how the League has such a big impact on so many issues in today's world, like voting rights and climate change. I also love how you are centered around diversity and inclusion among your members. That truly is the key to success. Thank you so much for this opportunity and your recognition, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Elsa, Kira, and Emma, are they amazing, the work that they have done? So let's give them a nice big round of applause and know that we have hope for the future with young women like that in our world. So thank you. I would now like to introduce to you Salvador Hernandez, the Colorado-Nevada State Director of Mi Familia Vota. It's an organization dedicated to building Latino political power by expanding the electorate, strengthening local infrastructures, and through year-round voter engagement. Salvador and Mi Familia Vota are great partners of the Colorado League through collaborative events, Colorado Civic Engagement Coalition, and an important federal lawsuit battling voter intimidation and suppression. So please welcome Salvador Hernandez.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for allowing me to speak to all of you this evening. Every time that I get the chance to speak to a group of people, I'm always debating whether I should, share my personal story or really talk about the specifics of the work that we do at Mi Familia Vota. So today I decided to do a little bit of both. So today I stand before you to shed light on a remarkable collaboration between my organization, Mi Familia Vota, and the League of Women Voters, and the significance of our joint effort in pursuing justice against a voter intimidation group. We are here to discuss this critical issue that strikes at the heart of our democratic principles, the right to vote without fear of intimidation. Before I delve into the details, I invite you to reflect on the fundamental values upon which our great nation was built: the right to vote as a cornerstone of our democracy and a powerful tool that empowers citizens to shape the direction of our society. It is through our votes that we express our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations. Every eligible voter deserves to exercise this right freely and without intimidation. The story we gather here today begins with the legal battle between Mi Familia Vota, the NAACP, and the League of Women Voters against a group called the United States Elections Integrity Plan, USEIP, an organization that sought to suppress voter turnout through acts of intimidation. It is with great pride that I stand beside these organizations who have taken a stand against such flagrant disregard for the sanctity of our electoral process. Our collaborative efforts led to a landmark case, and our demand was simple: ensuring that our elections remain fair and free from intimidation. But why is this collaboration so significant? It embodies the power of unity in the face of adversity. Mi Familia Vota and the League of Women Voters came together, representing diverse communities and backgrounds, to fight for a common cause, the preservation of our democracy. Our shared vision and commitment to serve is a testament to the strength of collaboration in overcoming obstacles and achieving justice. Through our legal battle, organizations shed light in the insidious tactics employed by USCIP to intimidate voters. We expose the attempts to suppress voters, particularly among marginalized communities who have historically faced barriers to exercising the right to vote. But let us not forget that the fight is not yet over. While this legal battle marks a significant milestone, we must remain vigilant and continue to stand against any attempt to undermine our democracy. It is our collective responsibility to protect the rights. It is our collective responsibility to protect the rights of every citizen, ensuring that they have a voice in shaping our future. Before I finish, I would like to share with you all what inspires me in doing this kind of work. I came to this country when I was 15 years old. I was undocumented, and I did not speak English. That was way back in 2005. For those of you doing the count, I'm 33 years old. And even though there was many obstacles in my life, for instance, not being able to get a driver's license or not having a social security, I never lost hope. I found my voice when a high school history teacher encouraged me to volunteer for a local organization working to promote civic engagement and civic participation. There, I learned about activism and volunteering. From that day, I learned that even if I was not able to vote personally, I could still make a difference in my community by encouraging others to vote. I'm also proud to tell you that next year, I'll be eligible to apply for citizenship, and after almost 20 years of not being able to vote for the first time. Thank you. And it is for that reason I stand here and I urge you, each and every one of you, to draw inspiration from the collaboration that Mi Familia Vota and the League of Women Voters have found. Let us recognize the power of coming together, transcending boundaries, and fighting for justice. May our victory serve as a rallying cry, reminding us that we are stronger when we stand united, and that we will never waver in our commitment to safeguarding the fundamental right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that important message, something we should never take for granted, the right to vote, right? And by the way, he didn't point out one very important thing. He has a baby at the back of the room, a new dad, a 4-month-old, so thank you for bringing your family as well. So, yeah, and congratulations. And now it is time to introduce to you our leader of democracy. He happens to be the congressman from my district, so I'm delighted to introduce him tonight. Former Army Ranger and Bronze Star recipient, Representative Jason Crow, grew up working class. He worked minimum wage jobs during high school and enlisted in the National Guard and worked construction to help pay his way through college. After graduating, Congressman Crow joined the active duty Army and served our country in Iraq and Afghanistan. Even when he rose to the rank of captain, he always remembered what it was like to march in the boots of an Army private. For Congressman Crow, this is the essence of servant leadership, always putting the needs of those you lead ahead of your own, and it continues to drive his approach today. When he returned home, he looked for ways to continue to give back. He struggled to get his veterans' benefits and knew others were having similar challenges transitioning from service to civilian life. So he went to work helping veterans across Colorado. Now he has taken his servant leadership to Congress, where he represents Colorado's 6th Congressional District and serves on the House Small Business and Armed Services Committees and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Whether combating the climate crisis, creating better, higher-paying jobs for hardworking families, or working to prevent gun violence, the Congressman is focused on putting Colorado and our country ahead of politics and partisanship. Congressman Crow was an easy choice for leader of democracy. We've all seen that horrifying photo of him protecting his colleagues on the balcony of the Capitol as insurrectionists were trying to break down the door below. His bravery and heroism helped keep our country's democracy and our democratic systems in place and functioning, including the transfer of powers. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Congressman Jason Crow.
Thank you, Ann. I'm grateful I'm not in your hot seat tonight, being grilled on my last votes. So that's a nice change. And thank you to Beth Hendricks and the entire board of the organization. I'm just really honored beyond words to receive this particular distinction, given the history of this organization and how much it has fought for democracy, for our governance, and for the right to vote. I need to start by taking you back a moment to April 4th, 2003. On April 4th, 2003, I was leading my platoon of paratroopers in the final assault on the city of Asamoah. We had been fighting for almost a week. It was the largest sustained urban combat of the 82nd Airborne Division since World War II. We were fighting house to house, street to street. And during that battle, what was happening was the Special Republican Guard were trying to lure us into ambushes. So they would come out and concoct an excuse with civilians and try to get us to go into alleys and to go into traps where they could then ambush us. So we had to be very careful as a 24-year-old platoon leader on what I did. And in the midst of that battle, very early in that morning, a man came out to my platoon, shaking and in tears, an Iraqi man. And he, in a very broken English, said, "Sir, we need you. We need your help. My son, he's wounded. Come with me. Follow me. We need your help." So I had to make a quick decision. What do we do? So I talked to my medic, a very young man, just out of high school, 18 years old. And like most Army medics, he was referred affectionately as Doc. And in the very rudimentary medical training that he had been given, he said, "Sir, we obviously need to go. What else are we doing here if we're not here to help them?" So I grabbed a small unit and we followed the man, not knowing what we were going to find. And sure enough, we turned the corner into the alley and there was a 6-year-old Iraqi boy with serious wounds, bleeding out. Doc set to work, stopped the bleeding. We called a medevac and we got the young boy named Bacan to a field hospital where Army surgeons operated on him and saved his life. But Doc, that 18-year-old medic who I often think about, was willing to give his life for somebody he didn't know. It's often said that in war you get to see the best in the worst of humanity. And that is certainly my experience. My platoon, those men, they were all men at the time because they hadn't yet opened up the infantry. But my platoon had come from everywhere. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, straight, gay, rich, poor. Some weren't even citizens. And we were thrown together in that situation and we had a decision to make. What would we do? focused on our differences, or focused on our common task, on what we had in common and come together? We, of course, came together and we became brothers, and we were stronger because of that diversity. We were greater than the sum of our parts because we were the melting pot of this country. Fast forward to January 6th, 2021. As I was taking refuge in the House gallery with 24 of my colleagues, as we were barricading the doors against that mob that had erected a guillotine out on the Capitol steps. And they were banging to get to us. And many of the folks on the other side of that door were my fellow veterans. So I sat there thinking to myself, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where my brothers and sisters who had raised the right hand just like I did, had taken that oath, who were willing to give lives for each other and for others and fulfill their duty, were brought to this point? But they believed I was the enemy. It's too easy to blame one man for that, although there are people that bear responsibility. But it harkens back to my youth as well. I was born and raised in a working class family in the upper Midwest. I spent most of my formative years in a very small town called Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. A town at that time of about 15,000, although it's less now. And as I biked my Huffy bicycle that was purchased in the local Kmart out of a box around Beaver Dam, there was something happening that I didn't notice. See, Beaver Dam was a factory town, or it had been. There was a company called Monarch Range and Ovens that had built ovens during most of the post-World War II era. But Monarch shut down. As I biked around, that closed factory was collapsing on itself and rusting. And then meth came in, and fentanyl came in. And that town, like so many others, was dying. And the American dream, which is not a chicken in every pot and a car in every port, but the American dream is that your children and your grandchildren, every successive generation, can do better. That they will do better than you. That's what every parent wants. That American dream was dying too, and is dead for so many Americans. I grew up working minimum wage, worked Arby's, worked McDonald's. I even took a turn in high school one summer as a rattlesnake wrangler, catching rattlesnakes, which I can tell you, it's far better to be paid by the hour than by the snake. But lessons learned there. But I also worked in construction. And every morning on the construction site at 5 a.m. when you wake up, you go to that site. I was a laborer, so laying asphalt parking lots, digging foundations. You shake a hand. You shake the hands with the other workers. And it's not really a handshake. What it is, it's a callus check. Because you want to see what type of hands that person has. It tells you who they are. It tells you more than the words coming out of their mouth. Are they one of us? Are they one of me? Do they understand me and where I come from? So in my time in Congress, a little over 4 years in, although I measure it in dog years, I'm almost 30 years in my estimation, I've learned that this coming together, this best of us from my time in Iraq, is still capable. It is still possible. We can achieve it. See, I hadn't run for anything before running for Congress. Nothing. I hadn't thought of that. But after the election in 2016, we decided to take our kids to the first Women's March. And we didn't know what to expect, by the way. Thought maybe a couple hundred people, maybe 1,000 would be in Civic Center Park. So we took our kids, We cut some boxes up. My daughter made a sign out of crayon that said, "Love trumps hate." And we showed up, and there were 150,000 people in these streets right outside. And we marched for hours singing, "A people united would never be divided." And I hoisted Josephine on my shoulder. And I knew then that the heartbeat of this nation, the fabric, the character of this nation was stronger than ever. What I think we need is a new American patriotism. This isn't our parents' and our grandparents' patriotism that whitewashes over so many elements of our past. It's a new patriotism that is honest with who we are, where we've come from, our unfulfilled promise, our substantial mistakes, and the things that we've done, including our original sin as a nation that we haven't fully grappled with and been honest about. Because moving forward isn't forgetting about the past, it's coming to terms with it and being honest with it and making it a part of our story. Because the beauty in this nation is not our perfection, it's our ability to self-correct, to have tough conversations, and to move forward and be better. I believe that that is possible, but it is only possible through individual sacrifice. None of us woke up wanting to be in this particular moment of extremism, of insurrection, of climate crisis, of assaults on fundamental constitutional rights on women. We didn't choose this moment, but that's the thing. You never get to. The suffragettes didn't choose it. The Freedom Riders didn't choose it. The Greatest Generation in World War II didn't choose it. You don't get to choose the moment. The only choice we have is whether you answer the call in what you are willing to give, how much you are willing to sacrifice for that moment. This is ours. This is our time. It chose us. I'm all in. I know many of you are. Let's meet that moment. Let's give everything of ourselves. Let's bring this country together. Let's move forward in a better way. Thank you, and I'm honored to receive this award.
Thank you so much, Congressman Crow. Before we conclude, we do have some more gratitude to distribute tonight. Big thank yous to our in-kind donors, partners and sponsors, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits, Chateau Saint Michel Wine Estates, The Twisted Tulip, Argonaut, Doug Fry Photography, History Colorado, Occasions Catering, Ann Gibbs Videography, Bear Creek Distillery. And this event is actually the largest fundraiser for the League of Women Voters. And for those of you who have donated, thank you. If you have not, there is still time to donate, of course. You can click the link to donate if you're watching the live stream. For those of you here in person, there should be some envelopes around that you can access because your support is greatly appreciated. And this event would not have happened if not for the enormous efforts of Katina Frierson, the Development and Communications Manager of the Colorado League. So Katina, thank you for working so hard to make this event memorable. Other folks working behind the scenes to make this event a success are Karen Sheik, the League's past president. Jane Dunk, Operations Manager. And of course, Beth Hendricks, the Executive Director. A couple of quick announcements. The exhibits will be open until 8:30, so you have opportunity and time if you if you so choose, to walk around and check out some of the exhibits because it's a beautiful space. Always remember, democracy is not a spectator sport, so get engaged and be involved. And the League of Women Voters is here to help if you so please. So I thank you for being here tonight, and it's been my honor to be with you here this evening. So for some final last words, I'm going to ask Beth Hendricks to come back up.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you so much for being here and leading us through this lovely celebration. I'd like to take a moment to give some more gratitude to Katina and Jane. And I'd like to give a special shout out to our staff legislative liaison, Andrea Wilkins, who led our Legislative Action Committee to great success this year, where 88% of the bills followed by the committee were decided in alignment with league positions. Another special shout out to the Board of Directors, many of whom are here tonight, and a few more watching on the live stream. We couldn't do it without you. And a big thanks to those watching on the live stream. We miss having you here in person, but it's great to see so many of you virtually, and we appreciate you taking the time. I hope you'll leave here inspired by what you've heard tonight and by the work and impacts of the League, because it's you who have done this. It's each of you that march and organize and educate and advocate and fight for equity and for every voice to be heard. You make the League what it is, a powerful force to be reckoned with. I'm inspired by each of you, and I thank you. Go Nuggets.